Welcome to The Deciding Point, our Cracked Racquets weekly roundup of the biggest storylines going on throughout the tennis world. Like all of you, we are so excited for the start of this 2021 season. More than anything, we're just excited to see our favorite players back on the court. And of course, we already have 1 week of action in the books, 1 WTA, 2 ATP events for us to discuss. Of course, all of us also still wondering what exactly the Australian Open is going to look like. We'll talk about that a little bit on this week's show. And joining me to discuss it all, you know him as our Cracked Racquets Do Everything, the forefather of the forehand slice, only undefeated coach in Missouri high school history. It's James Foster McDonald. Jamie, Happy New Year, my friend. I know you must be as excited as anyone for this 2021 season to get underway.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be back. Very excited for the 2021 season. 2020 brought us a taste of excitement, but looking forward to a real season coming back. And it's really, it's just a treat for us to have real ATP and WTA tennis back at this point. So pumped to be able to talk about that with you.
Yeah, even if we can't watch the action in Antalya because there's no live streaming, it still just feels nice to know that it's out there, to know that there are people in Turkey right now playing professional ATP matches. But of course, yes, it's been so nice to see tennis on our screen once again. And of course, you will be seeing all of us on your screen each and every week. We're going to record these episodes on Sunday, release them on Monday. Again, give you guys a good perspective of what just happened in the past week in the professional tennis world, what to expect in the upcoming week as well. With that in mind, Westoff, roll those credits, and Jamie, let's start our show. Okay, Jamie, I think the place we have to start this week is with the WTA action in Dubai, because for an inaugural event to this season, there are so many top WTA players in the field this week. You've got 4 top tenors in action. Of course, number 1 seed is the defending Australian Open champ, Sofia Kenin. You've also got Alina Svitolina, Karolina Pliskova, Aryna Sabalenka in the draw, along with all of the other players that we have grown accustomed to competing week in, week out in the women's game. I want to start with the most impressive performers, Jamie, because of course we haven't really seen any women's tennis in 2.5 months, that season ending in Ostrava and Linz back in mid-October. So through the first week of play, I'm curious, who have been the players that have impressed you the most on court?
Yeah, to me, there's one clear answer, and I think that's Sakkari. She has just looked so good. A very impressive win over Sofia Kenin in a match where she looked kind of down and out there for a while. Kenin just so solid, came right back, had no problem cruising through the third set to win it. She also picked up a win over Garbine Muguruza. Now she's squaring off against Sabalenka in the semis. Really excited to see what she can do through the rest of this week and obviously throughout the rest of the year, hopefully.
Yeah, no, you look for Maria Sakkari. She's now 21-9 in her last 30 matches. The only bad loss to a non-top 15 player during that stretch was to Kristina Pliskova. Of course, that was her first match back post-pandemic in Palermo in August. I mean, Sakkari's been phenomenal all week long. In her first-round match against former world junior number 1 Potapova, they were playing 2 different sports. You know, Sakkari looked like a professional. Potapova looked like a junior. Same deal with Coco Gauff. She was able to put pressure on Sakkari early on, but something we've seen in all 4 of her victories this week. There's just an aggressiveness Maria Sakkari seems to be playing with right now, and I had the chance to ask her about that aggressiveness in her press conference following her quarterfinal win over Kenin. You can go listen to that on the Cracked Interviews podcast, but it's the first serve, it's the inside in and inside out forehand from the baseline. She's just taking control of points much more easily than she did last season, and if this is the level she keeps up with her athleticism, she can do it on all 3 surfaces, Jamie. So I agree with you. She is the number 1 most impressive performer, probably the story of the opening week in Abu Dhabi. Of course, the other 2 stories, in my opinion, Aryna Sabalenka's won 13 matches in a row. I've talked about her enough down the home stretch of 2020. You know how much I think about her upside, what she's capable of doing. It looks like she is really starting to hit her stride. And then, of course, Alina Rybakina, who was so good to start 2020. She's the real deal, folks. She's in that Sabalenka Kvitova tier. Just the power she produces, it really is Del Potro-esque, Berdych-esque from the baseline. She has been so impressive. You know, there have been other players as well. Kudermetova making the semifinals is awesome, but those three for me, Sabalenka, Rybakina, and then Sakkari, those would be my most impressive performers.
Yeah, absolutely. Those three have looked so good, and it's an extra treat that we get to see two of those three, and Sakkari and Sabalenka square off in the semis to get to the finals of Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, it should be a really exciting home stretch. Well, let's flip gears now, because 1 week of play, we also have to react on who's disappointed us, who expected more from the first week of play. Who are your most disappointing performers in Abu Dhabi, Jamie?
Yeah, I think for me right now, you got to circle Pliskova. And look, maybe on this show and across Cracked Racquets, we hold her to too high of a standard. I'm not sure. I feel sometimes I'm being a little too harsh. But for me, this was a great chance for her to get out here, have a great first result, and really set the tone for what her 2021 was going to look like. And she just didn't do that. And I know when she was playing Gasanova, she was on fire, and I understand that. But you look from the Pliskova side, the serve was not doing that well, winning only 39% of points on her second serve. It's just not good enough. And again, I know she was going up against somebody who is red hot, so maybe this isn't totally fair, but to me, if you're really going to be that top of the world, that next step up and set yourself up for success in this coming year, you got to come out swinging better than that. And so to me, that's where I'm just a little disappointed right now.
No, it's fair. I mean, Gasanova played incredible tennis, and I actually thought Karolina Pliskova played pretty well. She moved about as well as I've seen her move in the match. Of course, she was forced to play more defense than she normally would be accustomed to. But, I mean, look, in her last, I think, 20 matches, she's 11-9. And this is someone who has led the WTA in wins accumulated since the 2014 season. And just, we expect a higher level from her because she's displayed a higher level. And we think she's capable of a Grand Slam champion. So you're right. Any sort of loss like this we consider disappointing, and we wonder, oh no, is this going to loom for another early exit for her from a slam? But we talked about this all off season. There's no denying, with all the young up-and-coming talents in the women's game, that window for Karolina Pliskova is closing, and this is just not the start you wanted from her. Although I will say she was very positive in her press conferences all week long. I think she's really happy with her new partnership with Sasha Bajin, but no doubt not the start she was looking for to her 2021 season. The only other two names I would throw in here, Jennifer Brady won a first set 6-0 and ended up losing her match in the first round. That's just not something you expect to see from Brady, particularly after the run she had to end last season. And then, you know, I don't think this player was particularly bad. It's just, for me, something that's a little disappointing still. I don't understand Kiki Mladenovic. I'll never understand her. There are times when she'll look untouchable in a singles match. There's other times when you're like, why am I wasting my time watching her right now? This is just not fun for anyone. And it's just, I guess it's disappointing that I still feel that way this deep into Mladenovic's career.
Yeah, I get that. Incredibly talented, but we've seen her, I mean, in the last couple of years, some of the worst blown leads we've seen on the WTA have been hers. And so it's tough to watch, and you're still in that camp where you want to root for her because you see the talent and you see the streaks, and it just does not come consistently. And so, yeah, I think you find yourself being naturally disappointed in the Mladenovic camp. But, I mean, at this point, my expectations of her, at least on tour, aren't that high or that serious, particularly when we're talking about bigger events. So it's easier to not get disappointed because at this point the expectations are fairly low.
Well, that's a fair point. And by the way, someone else who probably is feeling disappointed, Sarah Sorribes Tormo. Second time in 6 matches she's won a first set 6-love, only to lose the match. That's what happened here in the quarterfinals against Kostyuk. It also happened to her against Sabalenka, I believe, in either Linz or Ostrava. So, hey, great shot to her as well. But certainly, again, a very fun first week of play in Abu Dhabi. Let's switch gears now and talk about the men a little bit, because we've got 2 ATP 250s going on now. Of course, there were a ton of withdrawals prior to these 2 events, but still really fun fields in both Delray and Antalya. Let's start with Delray. That's the one that's on TV. That's the one that's obviously a little closer to us here in the United States. What are your takeaways? Most impressive, most disappointing, just the things you have noticed thus far through the first week of action in Delray, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's, first of all, how great is it to have some serious tennis back on American soil?
So
feels
outstanding.
Good.
I'm so done with YouTube highlights. I'm just done with them.
Yeah, so that's the first win for me. But honestly, look, this story has already gotten a little bit of airtime, so I won't belabor it here. But Christian Harrison, I mean, this has just been so fun. This has just been so fun to see, right? Everybody knows the story, how many surgeries, how many injuries, all of the trials and tribulations he's had to go through there. Picks up that huge win over number 1 seeded Christian Guerin. Now finds himself in the semis after a big quarters win. And so now you love to see this, especially from an American guy. It's just fun to watch. And look, do I expect massive things from this player in 2021? No. But regardless, this storyline just excites me. And it gets me pumped for the 21 season.
Yeah, it's 8 surgeries, right? Something like that. Mm-hmm. Something crazy. Yep. 7 or 8 different injuries that he's overcome. And yeah, it's for him to get to the semifinals. I mean, he was so talented as a junior. Obviously, his brother Ryan Harrison was one of the best American juniors of the aughts of the early 2010s. And, Christian just has struggled with so many different injuries. And, I mean, the level he's played has really been phenomenal. By the way, did I notice the fact that Christian Guerin lost another early round match on a hard court event? Yes, I did. And that's something I'm sure we'll talk about more during the year if it's a trend that persists. But no, Christian Harrison has been outstanding. Such a feel-good story as well. For me, 2 trends I've noticed continuing from the end of last season as well. Both Frances Tiafoe and Cam Norrie, who face off today in the quarterfinals, they're playing really good ball. I mean, they're both back inside the top 75 of the rankings. Cam Norrie just kind of broke down Adrian Mannarino. I mean, he played JC Aragoni in the first round, and that was another instance where just Aragoni couldn't do anything to disrupt Norrie's rhythm, and then Norrie just kind of slices and dices his way through Adrian Mannarino. Now, for Frances Tiafoe, wins over Donald Young and Bjorn Fratangelo. I'm not going to break them both down here, but I just think he looks solid. I just think those errors he made early in his career, the sprayed forehand, the random slice, they happen every now and then, but they're far less frequent than they were in 2018, 2019. The first serve is truly rounded into, if not an elite, a very good ATP weapon. And I think Frances Tiafoe is on a track back into the top 35 this season. I think the skill set has finally met up with his athleticism. The shot making, the decision making has been better. And I think these are all trends we saw at the end of the season that we see here through week 1. Not to overreact, but you always like to see that positive trend continue.
Sure, absolutely. And you mentioned, look, Frances Tiafoe, to me, this is a year that's huge for him. He needs to push back up into the rankings because where he's at right now is just simply not where he belongs. With the athleticism and talent he has, he's far above that. And so making deep runs in tournaments like this, especially to start the year, you're right, it absolutely sets the right tone for him. It's just going to be a matter of can he maintain this across the season, which, again, as we both agree, he needs to. And honestly, given his level, he should be able to. And I will say it's pretty high expectations from my side on Frances Tiafoe, so definitely the potential for some disappointment if this season doesn't go too well for him. But again, with the talent and athleticism he has, there's no reason he shouldn't just ascend way up in the rankings this year.
He's won Delray Beach before. Obviously, the first slam at the Australian Open is where he made his quarterfinal back in 2019. His schedule has opened up for Frances Tiafoe, and again, you have to win the matches in front of you. The draw has certainly been kind to him, but he's won the matches that he's supposed to, and for a long time that wasn't always the case. So yeah, a lot of positive takeaways from Delray Beach thus far, if you are not someone named Christian Guerin. Hubie Hurkacz, by the way, back on track as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more throughout the week on our mini break podcast. Let's quickly flip to Antalya, and with all due respect, if they're not going to give us a live stream, we're not going to give them more than 30 seconds of our time here. But Alex de Minaur advancing to the semifinals, Chardy advancing over Struff Dog. We saw Berrettini knocked off by the Boob. Your thoughts on the action in Antalya thus far?
Yeah, I mean, barring that result with Chardy and Struff, a lot of this has gone pretty chalk. The de Minaur draw, I mean, he's beat people like Jaziri and Basilashvili. It's like, okay. So for me, the big test is coming up when he has to play David Goffin to get into the finals. I think that's going to be a really fun match. Obviously, unfortunate that we can't just sit back and watch the whole thing live, but it is what it is. And I think both of those guys have the potential to do a lot of fun things in 21, and so I'm really excited to see how that one goes.
Really excited that David Goffin is feeling confident again back on court because he talked openly about his struggles with the conditions in 2020, so hope to see him bounce back this season. Yeah, I mean, we were talking off mic before the tournament started. Never count the Boob out. never count him out, because Sasha Bublik is going to do funky stuff. It's Nick Kyrgios with worse press, but that press gets better and better as he continues to put forward more impressive results. So yeah, it was a fun week in Antalya. It's been really fun for all three headline events in Abu Dhabi, Delray, and Antalya as well. We look forward to all of them completing this weekend. We'll cover them on the Mini Break podcast. But let's get to our final topic, Jamie, the deciding point, the event looming over all of this, the Australian Open, which of course is set to begin second week of February now. Australian Open qualifying this week going on in Abu Dhabi, I believe, as well. If not Abu Dhabi, Dubai. I may have screwed that up. Anyways, the point being, men's and women's qualifying underway. We've seen a lot of fun matches already. We've also learned about the changing conditions in Australia, and this is really what I want to talk about, Jamie. We're seeing changing of rules. We're seeing, not the same one bubble scenario in New York. It sounds like there are going to be a couple hotels early on. The best players are going to get to go play in EXO and Adelaide, while the non-best players do some other things and grind it out. It's just kind of a mess, and I'm just curious, at this point, we're a month away, your thoughts on where, the status report, I suppose, for this Australian Open.
Yeah, there's just so much going on right here. I can't even imagine the logistical nightmare that this is to put this event on. And, credit to everyone involved who's trying to do this. There are always going to be people who are upset with different ways things are run, things are handled, decisions that are made, and I understand that. But, how many variables can we possibly introduce into one single event? And it's hard to criticize, a lot of what you see from Australia because, realistically, the organizations and the government there have been the ones who have been on top of this pandemic pretty much from the start. And so obviously when you have people coming from so many different countries, it's okay. I'm very okay with Australia really calling the shots on saying, hey, here's what we're going to do and here's why, because they have a proven track record of success with this. But my goodness, yeah, the amount of different things going on here is just, it's unfathomable.
Yeah, and you saw the penalties they released, $25,000 fine if you're caught breaking protocol, and immediate suspension from the tournament. You're going to be exiled from the country. They're not messing around, all of these different things. And, again, I know proportionally there are more people in the United States, but proportionally there's a reason why, we have thousands of cases, and in Australia they have tens of cases a day. And the moment it gets into double digits, they shut everything down again because they're not messing around when it comes to this virus. And certainly, again, when you get to tennis players, what they like to do most is mess around. They like being accommodated. They're very self-centered. You have to be when you're a tennis player. You are your enterprise. But there are more logistical nightmares to come. You think players are going to be happy that some get to play ATP Cup, some get to play this other event, others aren't going to be doing anything. Certainly there will be practice partner protocol breaks, all of these different things. We're going to hear stories, and just everyone be prepared for it because, again, there's still some uncertain details, I suppose, heading into this Australian Open. But overall, I think it seems like the Australian Open is a go, and that is something we can all be very excited about as well. And of course, we can all be excited about the return of professional tennis now. This 2021 season officially underway. Of course, Jamie and I will be back here next week to break down the final results from these three events. Also talk a little Australian Open qualifying results and so much more. Hopefully you all will join us then, and if you have missed any of our Cracked Racquets coverage, you can find it all on the website, crackedrackets.com. But with that in mind, for my wonderful co-host, James Foster McDonald, our super producer, Daniel Westoff, and all of us here at Cracked Racquets, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. You've been watching another edition of The Deciding Point. We'll see you all next week. Thanks, everyone.